Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well and is staying healthy. Today we are going to talk about the book Schoolgirls by Peggy Orenstein. According to our book, Peggy Orenstein is an award-winning writer and speaker whose work primarily focuses on issues that affect girls and women. She regularly contributes to the New York Times Magazine, and her work has also been presented in USA Today, Vogue, the Los Angeles Times, and more. In addition to writing, Orenstein has served as an editor at Esquire and other magazines.
Orenstein wrote this book because she was inspired by a survey conducted by the American Association of University Women. The survey showed that girls have a steep decline in confidence as they reach adolescence. Because of this, Peggy Orenstein observed and interviewed 8th graders from 2 ethnically different communities for months in an effort to find out what caused these young students to self-doubt, self-censor, suffer from eating disorders, sexual harassment, and declining academic achievement. Many readers of this book agree that this book significantly impacts the way readers raise and educate girls.
The genre of this book is classified as women's studies, specifically education. The most prevalent themes of this book are presented from a primary source perspective, as Orenstein frequently asks many questions to the students affected by tense home lives, restrictive learning environments, and condemning classroom practices.
Classroom tendencies is our first topic. Tendencies indicate a pattern or a trend but do not guarantee results across the board. It's important teachers don't assume anything from any group of students. Teachers unintentionally treat boys and girls differently because boys are more loud and confident, but girls tend to follow the rules and are quieter. Teachers like girls because they are quiet, respectful, and follow the rules, but the loud, aggressive, and disruptive behavior of the boys contributes to their success. An example of this from our book is when the students were in a math class and the teacher asked the students if a number was prime or composite, and a girl named Allison raised her hand to answer the question, but a boy named Kyle just yelled out the answers and didn't give Allison a chance to even answer the question.
Girls who study math and science may have a confidence drop and then a competence drop, and I will explain more of this when we talk about self-esteem. In the classroom, the teacher, in a sense, reaps what they sow. So if they are disengaged and uninterested in the success of their students, the students then will be disengaged and uninterested in the lesson. The executive summary of Shortchanging Girls, Shortchanging America states that a survey was taken in 1990, 30 years ago, with the responses of about 3,000 students between grades 4 through 10 in 12 locations around the nation. The survey collected data from 2,374 girls and 600 boys. Check out these graphs to hear some interesting results.
When elementary school girls were presented with the statement, "I am happy the way I am," 60% of them responded by saying that statement is always true. In high school, less than 30% of girls felt that statement was always true. This drop of 31% is significantly lower than the boys' drop of only 21%. Next, we can examine a self-esteem index in Graph B. Similar to Graph A, the girls suffer a larger drop in self-esteem as they get older. This table shows self-esteem by race and grade. Some statistics worth mentioning would be that black girls tend to have the most confidence, while Hispanic girls tend to have the most dramatic decline in confidence out of these 3 races as they get older. Orenstein posits that Latina girls tend to struggle the most in a school setting because of low self-esteem, poor academics, low representation, and less opportunities to participate in student-led organizations. Unfortunately, Latina girls' confidence is adversely affected more than any other gender, race, or ethnicity. This could be related to certain cultural experiences outside of the classroom, but teacher practice is partly to blame, at least in the case of Orenstein's observations. In Graph C, 28% of boys and only 15% of girls would agree that they would argue with their teachers if they thought that they were right. This demonstrates that girls typically are more likely to follow rules and censor themselves, especially in the classroom. Finally, in Graph D, students were asked to respond to the statement, "I'm good at a lot of things." Similar to previous graphs, both genders experienced a decline as the students aged. Also, like previous graphs, the girls had a much steeper change, as the boys only had a 13% decline, while the girls had a 22% decline. Personally, I'm curious to see how these numbers have changed over the 30 years since this initial survey. I believe that social media and cyberbullying could have greatly affected these numbers. Culture exists inside and outside of the classroom. In one of our course readings, Haro presents the cycle of socialization. This visual representation of inequality shares a direct relationship with Spring's figure 4.1 of the War on Poverty from our text. The culture that should exist inside of the classroom should care for the whole student, meaning that all of the students' needs should be met in order to foster a healthy learning environment. Classroom culture should also present the same opportunities for all students as well.
If a child's needs are not met, they become part of the cycle of socialization. Parents play an enormous part in their children's lives. Their part can either create or destroy. There are many parts of the book that are good examples of creating and destroying, but an example of destroying is when this girl's mom had kids super young, so she was unemployed and she had no way of getting her kids to school. So the oldest daughter took her siblings to school before she went to school, which put her behind in her first few classes, so it made her lose motivation to want to go to her other classes, which made her fail and then be held back.
Like I mentioned earlier, girls who study math and science may have a confidence drop and then a competence drop. This means that when their confidence drops, then their success in school tends to fall too.
Students enjoy when teachers notice their hard work and dedication. It's important for teachers to comment and praise their students for their achievement. Most of the time, teachers tend to pay more attention to boys in the classroom than they do the girls, which can lead to self-esteem issues. Like the example that I used earlier about the math class and how Kyle always yelled out the answers. The teacher would pay more attention to him and talk to him more than when Allison would raise her hand, she would ignore her because she was being quiet. That would make Allison feel like she is invisible. Next is going to be a video that shows how today as a society, we as women tend to let our self-esteem be based on how boys treat us, and from the beginning, the treatment has been wrong.
A girl will never forget the first boy she likes. Even if things don't quite work out.
Why did you do that? Because you smell like dog poo. You're so stupid, just like dog poo. You're made out of poo.
But usually someone is there to offer words of wisdom.
Made of dog poo.
Honey, do you know why that little boy did those things and said those things? It's because he likes you.
And there it is. That's the beginning of our problem.
That little boy is doing those terrible things because he's got a crush on you.
Do you know what this means? We're all encouraged, no, programmed, to believe that if a guy acts like a total jerk, that means he likes you.
Next, we are going to talk about Title IX and sexual harassment. And I first want to say that sexual harassment reported by students needs to be taken very seriously. In 1972, the Education Amendments were passed into law, and Title IX is one part of those education amendments. The purpose of this law is to protect people from discrimination based on their sex in education programs or other activities that receive financial assistance on the federal level, such as the Department of Education. Title IX states, No person in the United States shall, based on of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance.
Title IX originally had no relation to the prevention of sexual harassment. That changed during May of 1999. This change was made at the conclusion of the court case Davis against Monroe County Board of Education. Everything began in 1992 when LaShonda Davis, a 5th grader in Monroe County, Georgia, was sexually harassed and abused by a male classmate over a 6-month period. The offensive behavior consisted of unwanted sexual comments about her body and things he wanted to do with her. He also tried to touch her inappropriately. LaShonda and her mother conversed endlessly with teachers and the principal over these issues. However, their efforts went unnoticed as no protection was provided for LaShonda and no punishment was given to the offending classmate. LaShonda's mother filed a lawsuit in 1994 under Title IX, stating that the school board discriminated against her daughter because no action was taken when they were notified about the harassment taking place. The case began in a federal district court and eventually transitioned to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. In January of 1999, Justice Sarah Day O'Connor held that school boards are liable for student-on-student sexual harassment when the school officials are deliberately indifferent to sexual harassment of which they have actual knowledge, that harassment is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it can be said to deprive the victims of access to the educational opportunities or benefits provided by the school. Since then, school boards have been liable for failing to prevent sexual harassment in a student-on-student scenario. Sexual assault and the lack of protection from sexual assault provided by Title IX and school policies can result in girls having lower self-esteem.
All right, Bulldog Heffley, meet your new opponent.
What? But this is boys wrestling. Ever hear of Title IX?
Her parents threatened to sue, so you show her what it's like to wrestle a real live boy.
In conclusion, teachers should watch for a decline in participation because this could be a signal for academic or mental health among students. In the classroom, teachers get what they give. If a teacher is disengaged and uninterested in the success of their students, the students will be disengaged and uninterested in the lesson.
The school and teachers should care for the whole student, meeting all of the students' needs in order to foster a healthy learning environment. Teachers should also treat students like adults if they expect them to act like adults.
Another thing to consider is that students enjoy when teachers notice their hard work and dedication in class, which is why it is critical for teachers to comment on and praise their students for their achievements. Next, teachers can deliberately call on students equally and/or wait a moment before taking answers to questions. Remember, it's not a race to see who can answer first, nor is it a contest to see who can answer the loudest. In addition, having students learn about different genders and different races can be a very helpful strategy for learning about diversity. This can also help a student develop their collectivism viewpoints. Finally, teachers can teach a difficult concept by starting small and simple, which allows students to connect and relate these ideas to their lives and then grow to more complex subjects.
I chose this book because the title made me want to know more. I wanted to know how Ornstein connected schoolgirls' self-esteem and the confidence gap. I also felt like I could relate to parts of the book because I'm a girl. I thought this book was super interesting. I hate reading books and I kept wanting to read this book. When the book was over, I was kind of sad because I wanted to keep reading. I would definitely recommend this book. I think as future teachers, everyone should read this book. It helps give you a huge, new viewpoint on how school is for girls and how teachers unintentionally do things all of the time.
I chose this book because the title seemed very interesting to me. As a young woman myself, I have to deal with self-esteem and how to be confident in a world that tells you how to act and look like to be quote-unquote perfect in this society. As I read this book, I feel like it hit every point and struggle that a girl goes through that we might not even recognize. I would definitely recommend this book to everyone, but especially those who are wanting to be a teacher. The point she makes in this book really shines a light on how things have been done in the classroom and how we, as future teachers, can turn the script around and make everyone feel loved and valued.
I chose this book because I am a male and I predict that I will be teaching countless female students during my career. I wanted to know what I should be aware of, what typically occurs in the classroom, what I should be sensitive to, and to discover what I can do to ensure an equal opportunity for all of my students. Even though this book is 25 years old, the women and girls whom I have talked to about this book feel that these issues are still prevalent today. Because I haven't lived the female experience, I wanted to put myself into other people's shoes, specifically those who have been hurt and disadvantaged from a place where all are supposed to experience educational equality.